Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hearthstone Collegiate Training Grounds. We just saw a 3-2 victory, a nail-biter one between Baylor University and the University of Georgia. But we have our second match coming up. It's going to be the University of California, Los Angeles, taking on the University of California, Davis. And that means we're headed over to the West to see the rest of these matches. And there you can see how it's shaping up on that side. Of course, UC Davis is 2-0 right now, but there's multiple schools there. They have 3 representatives from the University of California, Davis. This particular one is 2-0 with a 6-1 game record. So that's a completely different one, sitting with a 6-0 game record.
Wow, some of these teams have pretty good records. This is the 6-0 team, right?
No, we will be seeing the 6-1 University of California Davis compete this week in terms of games.
Okay.
But there are multiple, like I said, 3 teams from that school alone. Some of these teams have just a number of them competing. University of California Los Angeles has 2 teams representing from there. But let's talk about the matchup a little bit more in depth, where there you can see the classes available for each. Last week, we saw the Arcane Giant Druid brought alongside the Questing, Adventurer Rogue, Midrange Shaman, and Azoth Warrior for UCLA. And for UC Davis, they brought sort of the Yogg Druid build with Freeze Mage, Dragon Warrior, and the Wicked Witch Doctor Shaman.
I like that Shaman. I like seeing other people play it. I don't like playing that Shaman.
It's a little bit complicated.
It's a pretty cute deck with Bloodlust.
Let's take a look at UCLA a little bit more closely here. As there you can see on your screen, Avarice, Triton, and Tosca with Sociology, Mechanical Engineering, and Microbiology, Immunology.
Yeah, these are the Ironfur Bruins. It's their team name.
That's why they got the little bear for the icon.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, you got when
like
a guy's
this.
wearing a tank top, you are serious.
I like how they're very obviously kind of playing like a dorm room. So you really get the feel of this collegiate Hearthstone League.
I love it. Love seeing it. Let's take a look at UC Davis a little bit more closely. Varrock, Scop, and G-Man. That sounds like a sort of an indie band. Biomedical Engineering, Biochemistry, and Psychology and Computer Engineering.
Yeah, my favorite thing about this team is their team name is Decks Out for Harambe. So I'm definitely cheering for them.
So, well, I mean, if you look like that, you got to wear a tank. I mean, look at those biceps. It's going correct. I respect that. You work out, you work out. You got to let the world know. That's like
true,
half the
that's
reason
true.
to go to the gym is so that you can tweet or Facebook that you're at the gym.
Yeah, the other half is looking good, but you get both benefits. Not bad, not
Yeah,
bad.
let's ignore the health aspect of it. Nobody cares about that
I
stuff.
actually don't know anyone that works out for the health benefits.
I personally don't either. It's kind of interesting to think about. UCLA, of course, they beta away their own mage, and UC Davis has chosen to tuck away their Hunter build. Not too terribly surprising. I feel like Hunter is definitely in a strong spot versus, say, Warrior right now, but versus about everything else, I feel like Hunter can really have a tough time.
Yeah, these hunters actually got affected a lot by Caldwell turn 9 nerf, so that's actually big. Most hunters you see now are secret hunters, not so much mid-range hunters anymore after the Caldwell nerf. So
yeah, we saw BB Gun take America's Last Call Invitational with basically a secret hunter in it. He had copies of Cat Trick, and it was pretty aggressive and wanted to get on the ground running and doing it very quickly. And it was a fantastic performance from him. It was that finals was one of the best ones I've seen in a long time. So UCLA has got Cthulhu Warrior this week.
oh, okay, that's actually Cthulhu Warrior. You don't see these decks around a lot because the meta has significantly been faster nowadays after Karazhan. Midrange Shaman and the like is so powerful now that you don't really see too many other decks. And you generally see a more like non-Cthulhu Warrior to have a better matchup against faster decks. Cthulhu Warrior to me sounds like a deck that's kind of like teched in to beat other, control warriors and things like that. So
Yeah, and honestly, it does a fantastic job at that. We saw Frozen over the Last Call Invitational. He brought pretty much an anti-control warrior priest build.
yeah,
But he ran up against Silent Storm in the first round, and Silent Storm was playing Cthulhu Warrior. And when I was talking with Firebat about it, he said that the one way to really win that matchup was to wait and build your Cthulhu. And then once you had a big Cthulhu and you had Twin Emperor Veclor and you had Bran, you would drop Bran, Twin Emperor Veclor. But the first step to that was baiting out an Excavated Evil. Once you've done that, it's incredibly hard for the priest to actually handle that board state. So you get to push 12 damage and then play Cthulhu.
which
either clears the board or kills them.
Yeah, and at that point, it's two. One thing you can do for these kind of like big, Cthulhu decks that's countered by Mind Control and Entomb is you can get yourself in a certain situation where they just can't afford to spend that mana on Entomb that turn or Mind Control.
Yep.
That's what happens when you have the extra, all the four 6s left over. So.
Yep. Not to mention the Cthulhu's Chosen just punching away, one of the hardest cards for Priest to actually handle. And Wild Growth picked up a little late for UC Davis, but their hand is shaping up quite nicely. A copy of Harrison Jones, Azure Drake, Fandral with a Raven Idol, which in this matchup you'll oftentimes see Minion Chosen anyway, just for threat potential. But UCLA is coming out swinging. Acolyte of Pain and Disciple of Cthulhu. This is definitely not the typical Warrior matchup for Druid.
Yeah, UC Davis actually goes ahead and saves Ravenhell for Fandral. Pretty good decision. They have Harrison Jones here as well for a weapon. A lot of times you can save this exclusively for Cthulhu. Kind of surprised to see a Fandral here with the Nourish. Sometimes you want to save Nourish for draw in this matchup for cards instead of mana. I'd actually think I might prefer to see Nourish for mana this turn, and then Hero Power down the Divine Shield, and from there, I don't know, the mana's too optimistic, but then you drop Azure Drake and hope that you get some spells or something.
Certainly a lot of damage. Yeah. Going for Ironbeak Owl into a second Raven Idol, and with Fandral out, why not? This is truly where the infinite Raven Idol value can actually take place.
So you want some high value minions.
And they snap take Nexus Champion Sarad, which again provides just long-term value. And Nourish is a card you put in your deck anyway, and I'm curious how much they value Naturalize since they just took Ironbeak Owl. This is one of the matchups where I feel Naturalize actually can make an impact, but that is a long way off.
Yeah. As the Druid here, you have to think about like the total sum value of your deck for value in this kind of matchup, because you actually can get there. This matchup is slow enough for you to get there. That's why sometimes you're not that's why they tank so long in the second Nourish, because with already one Nourish, you can already assume that maybe you're drawing through a whole deck fairly fast anyways at that point. You might as well just take a more powerful card like Naturalize at that point, but still going for the second Nourish. Naturalize is kind of an iffy card to have here, so.
And no way to really kill stuff in hand either. I'm certain it's a welcome pickup right now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this depends if Davis is playing a Malygos Druid or just playing a simple version of, say, something like a Token Druid.
Yeah, draw a hidden card for now. We'll get that
that's
fixed.
weird.
Get that fixed as quickly as possible.
Okay.
It is a spectator issue.
Okay.
And we see we get a glimpse is Feral Rage. This was an interesting spot to me because I feel like the Nourish here was really strong for UC Davis. Nourish into mana, use Hero Power, take out the Cthulhu's Chosen, follow up with Azure Drake onto the Ravaging Ghoul afterwards. But they favored the development immediately.
Yeah, and also part of leads into what I was saying last turn about having two Nourishes, because now what you're saying, you can just use one Nourish for mana here. You're not going to run out of cards because you still have another Nourish, and by using Nourish that turn, you can also squeeze in Hero Power, and then next turn you'll just have so much mana with the Azure Drake that you can combo a lot of spells with it potentially.
It does get taken care of anyway, but it's because UCLA has Justicar Trueheart, and that is a massive blow to UC Davis, and third Nourish gets drawn.
I don't know. So yeah, you kind of have to assume that some of these Nourishes want to go to mana and not cards.
They have to.
You can only draw so many cards.
They have to funnel into mana, I
What's
think.
the point of mana when you're at 7?
Get to 10.
Yeah.
Unlocks Wild Growth if that's a draw you get.
If this is Malygos, though, you don't mind just going through your entire deck, because the moment you go through your entire deck, you just combo them.
That is true.
Yeah, it doesn't always work against Justicar here, because even if you combo them, you might not have enough damage still. It's certainly not a bad thing, though, if you're a Malygos deck.
You concede, and I'll let you live.
Yep, Sarad is going to be the play here.
A new acquisition.
Elemental Destruction is actually quite interesting. This is something that Druid usually never has access to, a big AoE spell.
Yeah, this is actually a matchup where the Overload actually doesn't matter too much. Control Word gives you a lot of time, and that's not an effect they're expecting. So a lot of times you can, really surprise someone, especially dropping that into some like Twin Imps. That's really hard to deal with usually.
But something else that's kind of hard to deal with is this Justicar. Harrison Jones is going to take care of the Gorehowl, but...
Actually, I do want to say that that Davis actually doesn't have all the time in the world to set up for Malagos, because one key difference of a Cthulhu wear compared to a normal control wear is their threat density is incredibly high. You see, UCLA's hand; they have so many minions, so many threats. That's 2 shield bears, a Doomcaller, a Cthulhu. There's just so many threats, and Druid has a hard time dealing with just this amount of big minions. No mulch. There is a elemental destruction here, but again, that's not even big enough in a way to deal with some of these. So.
I recall back to the pre-standard rotation where I always struggled with Warrior playing against Druid. Now, a lot of people did. But I sat down with Amnesiac and I played some games. He didn't think it was that bad of a matchup. He obviously thought it was not in his favor, but there was a very specific way to win. And when I was playing with him, I watched him keep Shield Bearer in his opening hand. And I went, that's really weird. Why do you keep that? He goes, whole goal against Druid is just to make sure that your things kill their things. And Shield Bearer not only kills things, but it offsets the damage they deal with it. It's the perfect card. It's kind of interesting. And in this matchup, you're very much seeing a similar thing with the Ancient Shield Bearer. It is very difficult for Druid to make headway on that card.
Yeah, Druids are actually weak at killing minions. Their removal's not too good, and especially with the, with some of these removals spells having to be, combo cards with Malagos presumably hitting face. If you can just like bomb chain them, just drop all these minions, you would have to assume that Druid just cannot deal with all these things and still have enough damage to kill you after.
Right, it's a lot to deal with. Now, granted, your opponent face tanking Baron Geddon will help that game plan out a little bit, but UC Davis is on the back foot here. They still have 3 copies of Nourish in hand. They still have an Iron Beak Owl. They have yet to unlock an Arcane Giant. Like, where's this game plan going?
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, they cannot draw here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. They have 8 cards in hand.
Yeah, the problem with Davis is that they just don't have enough time to use all these nourishes. Assuming there's maybe no Yogg in this deck, even if they draw a lot of cards, if UCLA just throws down minion after minion after minion, you just fall further and further behind no matter how many cards you have in your hand. Part of what it's shaping up to be, might just have to Moonfire here for tempo. You're just that desperate to get on board,
Yep, I totally agree with that. I'm not often in a spot where I'm in the business of using my Moonfires outside of combo damage, but you gotta do here for Davis. They have plenty more gas in the tank. What they don't have plenty of right now is time.
Yeah.
And so they have to figure out a way to get on this board, and UCLA is eyeing that Cthulhu at the moment.
Pretty surprising. There's a fairly easy way to deal with this in Disciple of Cthulhu, plus say something like Ancient Shield Bear continue to.
I think Cthulhu is just fine.
Yeah.
Cthulhu threatens lethal here.
That's true. It's 12-12. Yeah, especially
and
no
they can buff it 2 more with the Disciple. I always forget that when Cthulhu's on board, at the +2/+2 still gets tacked on. I have missed lethal doing that so many times. It is unreal.
Yeah, actually, I like Cthulhu here because if you do the other play with Ancient Shield Bear and Disciple, next turn they can drop a lot of minions that can absorb these Cthulhu Battlecry stuff, right? Especially stuff like Arcane Giant. And once that, this is the more standard line in a way. You would do this most of the time, but there are times to turn on your on switch and just go for it. And this could be a very great time for Cthulhu.
Yeah, typically speaking, when your opponent has a fairly weak turn, that's the turn to strike.
Yeah. I wonder how much mulch goes into this. What if he gets mulched?
If he gets mulched, they're at 6.
Yeah.
And I got plenty more to back it up.
Doomcaller.
Yeah, I got Doomcaller as well. Let's see if we can get the second one going.
This board's not even that easy to deal with anyways, though. Let's see. It looks like a swipe and a Living Roots together with a free Arcane Giant stuff. 5 mana left over. Can combo that with Nourish.
This looks
Wall Growth
tough.
Hero Power.
I don't think any of these options are looking too appealing for UC Davis right now.
Yeah, the problem with the Arcane Giant play with those 2 spells is you're leaving up something like 10 armor, 9 armor, very easy shield slam there, but you have to actually play something first before the Nourish, right? You can't Nourish first.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm curious if the Elemental Destruction ever comes out here, just for mana's sake. Destruction into Emperor Thorson, maybe.
Yeah.
I kind of like that, actually.
You have to roll. You don't have to roll high. You can just Destruction, Living Roots, plus. You can actually play both your minions with this play.
Whoa. Now that I'm a little bit surprised by. That locks out the potential for Emperor next turn. Unless they pick up 2 Innervates.
And you have to assume that you can't be too scared of Brawl this turn with just 2 minions here, especially because 1 minion is so weak for tempo because of Shield Slam. But there is no Shield Slam here. It's actually a weird turn for UCLA. Cthulhu isn't that great. Drop into 188 at 12-12. Or, yeah, it's 14-14 now.
Yeah, and this was a concern of mine of not playing the Cthulhu and using the tools at your disposal. You know, if you use the tools and then you play Cthulhu, if the Cthulhu isn't good enough to get the job done, that's it. But the Cthulhu, the turn they could have dropped it, it was good enough to get the job done, and they would have had follow-up.
Yeah. Kind of weird turn. I can see either line going here because of a Brawl in UCLA's hand, they actually could potentially do a move like Shield Block and try to draw a Shield Slam. If it does, even if it goes badly for them after Shield Block, they still have the Brawl.
Well,
But
Iron Beak Owl is some good.
That's funny.
Yep. Cthulhu does need to die in this position as well, as it is threatening lethal. But here I would love to see the innervates into Emperor Thorson. I think Emperor Thorson's unlocking a lot of potential in this spot. And frankly, I would like to see it sooner, but it is what it is.
It can't feel that bad for UCLA, though. They still have the Doom Caller. Get that Cthulhu back into their deck, develop a 7-9, which can test the board very well. Oh, it's kind of weird leaving up Emperor, but...
What is a 7-9? I always thought that guy was a 7-8.
No, it's 7-9. I play that card a lot. Back then, not anymore. It's one of my favorite cards. Body of
Doom Caller's one of your favorite cards.
Yeah,
that's what you're telling me right
big.
now.
It's a big dude. Does a lot of damage, has a lot of life.
You know War Golem's one of my favorite cards?
What does War Golem do, though?
It's a 7-mana 7/7. He just punches. I just like it. I don't know. He's just a big dude. I don't really know how to explain it.
Yeah.
I just like it.
Okay.
See, everyone always likes to complain that, like, oh, Priest isn't very playable. Like, yeah, well, sometimes their favorite things aren't very good.
This is a turn where oh, wait, never mind. I was going to say something about you can flood the board, and because you're leaving up the 7-9, you can kind of hope that it dies to Brawl itself, but you can't really do that when you're at 6 life.
No, you cannot. Every threat is a must deal with right now.
Yeah,
for UC Davis.
Because you have to take creative lines here. Right? You can't just afford to grind out every minion here because you just won't have enough damage left over to kill them, which is kind of where it's going towards right now, right? Like you kill, you have to rag at a field maybe, but that's so risky.
I don't
if you
think
miss,
so.
you die.
I think I like the swipes, and the reason I like the swipes is because the Emperor's getting a second discount here, and so that Ragnaros is going to be 6 mana. 6 mana Ragnaros is no joke.
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, I love the idea of double swiping, trading in the Iron Beak Owl, pushing 5 to face, and then going into Nourish Arcane Giant.
Yeah.
That gives them a very strong board presence.
Oh my.
Whoa, they are rolling the dice. No way. No way.
Sometimes you just gotta take risks, but
no way. This is crazy.
See, they know what I'm talking about. These guys know what's up. You see, Davis.
Oh my gosh! I've never seen anything like that in my life. So the spectator didn't catch up in time, but that means Ragnaros missed.
That does mean Ragnaros missed.
I'm I'm at a loss for words. I honestly would never have done that because I don't think having the Ragnaros on board is really presenting that much. I mean, they can emulate having Ragnaros on board by just playing the Arcane Giant.
Yeah.
They can create almost an exact same situation by swipe, nourish for more cards, Arcane Giant.
Yeah, and it's a very similar board. The only difference is like
you still
the
have
total
burst.
sum. No, you lose your burst because you lose the swipes. I mean, Ragnaros is burst, but
look, if they're able to kill if they're not able to kill the Emperor Thorson, they probably weren't able to kill the Ragnaros. That's where my thought's at.
Yeah,
and so you have the similar board state where you have Arcane Giant and Emperor Thorson, and your Emperor Thorson's chaining at this point. You can drop the Ragnaros at the right time to deliver that final 8 points.
Too greedy.
I don't even know if greed's the right word for that. That's like a kamikaze mission.
That's exactly what the word for it. But maybe it's an understatement. They're insanely greedy. But that's nice. That's a good outlook on life, especially for a college student. You gotta be a little greedy, especially as a young potential entrepreneur. Take some big risks, big payoffs, get that money in the bank.
I personally am going to not only recommend that for people who are young, but for myself as well. When I become old and miserly, I also want to be very greedy.
Okay. Yeah.
Period.
You're going to be one of those old dragons, like, you know, with a hoard of
Scrooge.
gold.
Scrooge is the man that comes to mind. I'm already starting to grow the beard. It kind of looks like it. It's getting some gray in there, too. But, yeah, 1-0 lead now for UCLA. Shaman and Druid left to win with. And the Cthulhu matchup is, I think, very particularly interesting because I think Cthulhu performs a little bit better versus Shaman at times, but you need to have a very specific set of tools to deal with it. If you don't get one of those strong openers that allows you to kind of just murder everything the Shaman plays turn after turn, you end up in a spot where you're trying to go threat for threat, and a single hex just completely destroys the game.
Yeah, well, another card that Cthulhu is generally very weak against that a normal controller is not that weak against is Flametongue Totem. Flametongue Totem does damage, so it's still good for a Shaman to, have that against a normal controller. But with all these totems, it allows all these totems to propagate into minions, and Cthulhu is so minion heavy that they oftentimes just don't have other plays, so they oftentimes have to just drop minions into Flametongue Totem. Not always ideal. There's Yogg.
Yeah, this is we saw UC Davis bring Dragon Warrior last week, but this week they've swapped it up. The Control Warrior to fight the mid-range Shamans has been awfully popular lately, and Yogg-Saron, despite the change, has been an inclusion in a lot of these decks. And if it's still good,
yeah,
not quite as good, but sort of what I like to look at is it gives you an idea of how strong the card was prior to them changing it.
Yeah, that's actually not a minor nerf. And most of the times when cards get major nerfs, they're generally not played in top-tier decks anymore. Yogg is I'd feel that's a pretty major nerf. It's definitely not a minor nerf to Yogg.
Not at all, but he's still good.
Yeah, he's just
that's the
that
crazy
good.
part. So Yogg-Saron prior to the change, if Yogg-Saron killed himself during his sequence of spells, it continued to cast. But now it's no longer like that. If Yogg-Saron leaves play, if he's silenced, if he's transformed, it will immediately stop the chain of action. And so there is a much higher risk versus reward facet with that card. Despite that, it is still worth it in some of these builds.
It just shows how good it is, especially against the mid-range Shaman. Not against mid-range Shaman here.
Yeah, is facing off against what looks like a token Yogg build. And with 2 Innervates and Wild Growth, Innervate not necessarily a super important card in this matchup unless you're playing Violet Teacher. For the most part, it's about Wild Growth and unlocking potential.
Yeah, I think cards that like Azure Drake and Nourish are very good in this matchup because this matchup is often about, it's not really about the timing of your threats, as long as they come down at some point. What I don't like the most as the Druid player is if you ever start passing turns or not doing anything. That gives Warrior time, but yeah, I like Azure Drake to start cycling.
Things off, yeah. So this matchup is really interesting where the Violet Teacher builds oftentimes struggle to Warrior. But one of the cards that really changes that is Soul of the Forest. If Soul of the Forest is included in UCLA's build, this matchup goes from slightly unfavorable to massively favored. They're able to make a huge board position and then protect those minions. Without that card, though, it's difficult to launch a full assault without a high opportunity for UC Davis to punish it.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things about Control Warrior against Druid is that Control Warrior generally has enough removal to deal with these tokens generators. So like when you do play your very powerful turns, like for example, Violet Teacher, Innervate, Wraths, Power of the Wild, all the time what happens is you kind of just open yourself up to a brawl. So sometimes what you want to do as the Druid is you want to play in a way where you're kind of forcing a brawl and you're kind of not. Like you're very much living on the edge there. And what you do is like if your board sticks, then you can play maybe like a second Power of the Well to kind of like blow through damage at that point. But you oftentimes want to split up some of your like power turns, not all at once.
One of the problems with using Wrath in this matchup too is that because inherently the Druid is the aggressive build, using Wrath to not draw cards has a big cost to it. And here, they're just going to go for it. It's Violet Teacher, it's double Innervate, it's Wrath, and it's Power of the Wild. UC Davis doesn't have a punish in hand.
And I like this play over the Violet Teacher, Innervate, Wrath move because I feel like, again, while saying living on the edge, right? But that move is not living on the edge. That move is too weak, right? Because if you just Violet Teacher, Innervate, Wrath, I don't think you're even like close. It's way too weak, I feel.
Oh my gosh, UC Davis, they're in trouble. They're in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah, this is like, do you have Brawl or not? And the answer is no. So
Yeah, the answer is no. We have Ironforge Portal into a 1/1, which spawns a 5/5 afterwards. So it's good value, but it takes time to unlock.
guess you're ignoring the 1/1.
Yeah, and this is an opportunity for UCLA to just push massive damage. Honestly, making a 2/2 here I don't think is unreasonable. I think the ramp is still better, but at this point, like, their window of opportunity is now. They have to push.
You know there's no Brawl here. There's no way someone plays this
0% chance.
instead of brawling that
There is
board.
a 0%
Yeah.
chance that anyone who has an understanding of how the game works would forego a brawl in this situation if they had it.
Yeah. Here comes face. Better not station trade on the 1/1. It's actually worse to kill the 1/1
Yeah.
with your hero power, since then they have a 5/5 to trade for your Violet Teacher. So definitely like leaving up the 1/1. It is scary to leave it up against Brawl, but again, because there is no Brawl.
Well, Ironforge Portal number 2.
Yeah.
And there you can
Actually,
see the
not
Twilight Center.
enough to kill the Violet Teacher with the 4 armor.
Wow. Shield Slam will cut into some of the damage here, but they got to hurry up. And and they're getting board presence now, and UCLA drew the weakest card in the deck to follow up. So that is some breathing room. Oh my, Arcane Golem is gonna add some mighty pressure to this board. Once again, UCLA, this is not a spot to try to find value trades. It is full face damage here. The only concern I have is, should they hero power the Faceless Destroyer, I believe it's called, the token? Should they hero power the 5/5 so that way when it inevitably attacks the Violet Teacher, it's already set up to die?
Oh, I probably wouldn't hero power it. I feel like you can kind of just suffer lethal in a way. Oh, this is
Whoa.
interesting. You can actually.
Oh, I kinda like this,
do
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, this
'cause
is
they're
smart.
trading anyways here, and then you're also getting a good hero power instead of just hero powering face. UCLA has to make a read here that Davis's hand is very minion heavy, because all these turns were so high pressure.
Wow, that is a huge draw for UC Davis.
Yeah, there's actually some thought here how you do this, right? Like if you like what you attack before brawling.
Yeah, because if you don't attack the Violet Teacher,
And it
it means that
survives.
UCLA has 2 survive targets. They're going to roll the dice. I don't mind it. It's 5
I don't
extra
mind it
damage.
either. Also, you have a better case of if your 5/5 survives, it's a 5/5 instead of a 5/1.
Yeah, 2/2 lives through it, and suddenly the assault has come to a halt. And my name is Dr. Seuss. UCLA, Mire Keeper. Honestly, the mana here is not bad, so you can draw the card immediately.
I don't think immediate, like just next turn is fine. Yeah, I mean when you have.
I'm jamming
10 mana
Yogg
next
personally.
turn- No. Really.
They have nothing in hand.
So first of all, how many spells do you think have been played? Let's see here.
It would
There
be-
was a
that would
2
be-
Innervates Wellgrowth.
So the Wild Growth would make it 8 spells.
8 spells already?
Yeah. With the Wild Growth and the excess mana, it's 8 spells.
Okay.
Now, this is an awkward turn for UCLA. Okay, the Nourish Draw makes it way less awkward. Here, they can kind of finagle this. The deal is, if they're pushing damage here, they don't quite have enough damage to get the job done, so they need to find a way to set this up. And so, if that's the case, do they value setting it up over a course of a couple turns, or do they feel like they want to trade in the board here just to negate the
I
Sylvanas?
doubt it. What I would do here is I would just like something Wall Growth the cycle, and then just everything to the face, and you just keep playing more spells these turns while not really caring about the board state too much because you want to slam down Yogg very soon. This is a little bit weird against Sylvanas, but I feel like full trading against Sylvanas is going to be even worse. And what you can do is just as your board dies to Sylvanas, you can just maybe do a Wrath before Yogg at some point as well. So I just like valuing, playing a lot of spells and just ignoring the board, just every face.
I personally would ignore the
Yeah.
board as well,
Yeah.
but that is their one choice
Yeah.
as far as this turn is concerned. And it looks like it's the full damage push.
Yeah. They got a lot of spells that turn compared to playing Yogg this turn if they Wall Growth last turn. There's
Yep.
3 extra spells with Nourish being 1 spell, that Wall Growth being 2.
So I believe the Yogg count is 9 in that case. I wonder if UC Davis ever feels like Brawl is the play here.
It's actually somewhat tempting because, well, you're losing the Justicar armor, so you're leaving up only 2 extra power with this play because you would presumably clear the whole board, but you don't get a tank up, so it's only 2 more damage and you can develop Justicar. I don't mind it. Probably have to save Brawl for another Violet Teacher
Ooh,
turn.
Swipe's an interesting pickup.
What does it do? You can swipe the Justicar and Wrath the Sylvanas, lose a 2/2. He's doing a full trade.
Well, the swipe is just damage at this point. UC Davis is at 14. And the way that UCLA is going to win this game is by just getting some damage across. I'm curious where all this fits in. And wow, I don't even know. I mean, I could honestly see them uprooting here, too.
Uprooting? It's weird because of Shield Slam, but I guess it doesn't matter here. But yeah. I don't know how I feel about this. Yeah. Because I could see just pushing face damage being better than just not caring about the board because of Yogg as much.
It's really close, honestly. It's very rare that this is the case too. But this is one of the matchups where high risk, high reward pays off.
You can't feel good about dropping Ancient Ward too with no like Shield Slams and Executes being played. Right, like Ancient War is kind of like the last thing you want to play.
Well, it kind of
for
depends.
tempo.
Like they've known that UC Davis set a heavy hand for a while, and so everything's been played from the right side. So they know that these cards have been in hand for quite a while, and if that's the case, there's no Shield Slam or Execute in those because the Violet Teacher would have gotten dealt with in a more timely fashion.
That's true. It's not always easy to activate something like Execute though, perhaps. But
and all the more reason I think to play it here. No board presence, 10-5, go.
Okay.
Gonna keep building here. It's Azure Drake first. I mean, Azure Drake's swipe is...
It's amazing.
Yeah.
you would definitely save the Raven Isle for Vandal at this point.
Oh, definitely. Especially with the Violet Teacher pickup.
This is turning into a huge grind at this point.
Now, in the grind battle, though, that's something that's curious to me because UCLA's drawn a lot of cards. And if this is coming down to a spot where it looks like UC Davis can actually kill every threat and then roll into fatigue, that could be a really bad thing for UCLA. They'd have to put together some real damage. That's where the Raven Idol with Vandal is so important, though, is the access to another big minion.
Yeah. Because usually you take Spell, and then you have the Spell and the minion here. So Swipe is very likely coming down on this guy. He's thinking of whether he wants to play Violet Teacher and Swipe, a little bit weaker to Brawl. Your opening year have a wider board of weaker minions. Looks like just the Raven Isle first, probably a Swipe follow-up, and this way it's playing very much around the Brawl.
Druid of the Claw is picked up.
It's a good one.
And Mark of Yasharaj can couple with the Druid of the Claw as well.
Oh, yeah. Having something that's that can deal repetitive damage is very important here.
They could also take Wrath in this spot. The Wrath will deal 5 damage to... I'm sorry, yeah, 5 damage to the Elise, Starseeker, and that would allow them to keep the swipe and point that at face at some point.
Okay, okay. And it cycles itself for another threat, too. I don't like Living Roots here. You're already kind of playing around Brawl, but not playing it.
I'm undecided. I think I would save it just to try to have surprise burst damage.
Yeah.
I've never seen a faster shield block in my life. Well, this is a weird spot. Neither of these... Now, here's the deal. Shield Slam on a non-high profile threat right now is a big deal for UCLA. They know now that they can start getting threats on board and pushing damage. UC Davis giving up a premier removal spell to handle a Fandral at this stage in the game.
Yeah, so the important thing for UCLA is, you know, it's so weird because Davis doesn't have very many cards in their hand, right? But he's still, like, the Warrior's still winning the late game, and ultimately with Tank Up already coming down here, you know, with only 8 power on board, you're still only dealing, what, 4 damage a turn, maybe 5 through hero power. So there's a very real threat by playing slow here that you just simply give Davis enough time in order to slowly kill your stuff with you know, their few cards that they have and just keep tanking up, and then you start getting into fatigue. Another thing is there's only 6 cards left, as you said, and Yogg is becoming more and more risky as well as you get lower in cards.
Yeah, I mean, going into this turn, UCLA had 6 cards. UC Davis had 14 cards in the deck.
Yeah.
If they can keep checking threats, they will very likely win this game. But
I feel like with the Ragdoll, I feel like it's very likely that UCLA just wants to force a brawl. So something like Living Roots, perhaps for board instead, just to be able to force out a brawl, and then you can start flooding the board. Whereas this way, if you continue playing slow, you can just lose to fatigue. looks like saving everything for burst. It has 10 damage from hand with Ragnar's Living Roots.
Yeah, that'll set UC Davis to 9. Bash feels like a great draw right now.
I still
Just
feel like you
anything
get
to
the
cut
roll here.
Yeah, I feel like you do too, and that's really the problem with UC Davis.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm curious if they could have just tanked extra damage from the Fandral and tried to look for another brawl turn. They were suffering 3 points of damage, or sorry, 4 points of damage in that state every single turn. But given they were so low on cards, could they afford to go for it in the fashion they did?
Yeah. I mean, holding Brawl stops a big board flood next turn, whereas if you do use a Brawl, you can't get flooded here. So you're going to 16, and there's only 10 from hand. There's 4 on board. Still no lethal unless second Living Roots, which... that's actually...
I'd go for Minion with that for sure.
Minion, yeah.
This is very much a grind battle, and so they need something to stick. I mean, honestly, they could get almost anything that's overstated here for the state of the game, and it's fine. Like, if they picked up Boulder Fist Ogre, that's a fine pickup.
Like, Boulder Fist Ogre is going to be better than almost any spell here as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're not looking
So
to draw any more
repetitive
cards.
damage, yeah.
Honestly, the Ragnaros First does actually give you more information, though, because you get to see how UC Davis responds to this. And if they respond to this and are at a very low life total, maybe you do go for spell.
It feels like UCLA has a very good read that this card is Brawl. That's why they've been playing around it. And that's why they're Ragnarosing here instead of playing Raven Idol, because Raven Idol generates another token. That makes the Brawl much better. So what they're doing is they just want to say, okay, I can't play slow anymore. I'm just going to force out a Brawl. But at least this way, Brawl still has 33% chance of leaving out Ragnaros and also 33% chance of leaving out Violet Teacher. Either scenario is semi-fine here for you. Even if the Violet Teacher survives, then you can just spam spells like Raven Idol and still generate more 1/1s.
Total agreement. And hope is quickly dwindling for UC Davis, down to 3.
Yeah. You have to play Brawl now, especially if the Violet Teacher survives. Now you can slam and then kill it after. So definitely like seeing Brawl first. The only bad way is if Ragnar survives, but
What now?
I can't see it ever slamming first here.
Yeah, I don't see Slam First being an option.
I mean, even if your Ragnar survives, yeah, it's weird. Like, you could just slam Executor if it survives too, right?
Well, I'm not sure. Oh my gosh.
I don't know what the point of that thing first is, you know?
Oh, my gosh!
What?
UC Davis, when it comes to the endgame pressure moments,
They always make the...
they've had a couple missteps, to say the least. But the winner of game number 2, UCLA, they are looking fantastic in this series. And honestly, it's kind of hard to read what the last card in someone's hand is, but Brawl is one of the ones where it's not quite as hard. And one of the reasons it's not quite as hard is because the card has sat there for everything and hasn't done anything in any position. What else could it possibly be?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just, it has to be Brawl or Deathwing or something like that. So I love the way that they kind of took it a little bit slower and kind of recognizing that Ragnaros, without any extra action, was the play there.
Yeah.
Simply because a 3/5 was enough of a threat. That's a good recognition from UCLA in the spot.
Yeah, I like that Ragnar's play a lot. No real counter to it, you can just do everything next turn with the... Sometimes the best way to deal with the Brawl, especially when Warrior has tank up already, is to force it. It's not always about playing in a way where they never can use the Brawl, because then you're just playing into tank up more.
Yeah, so this is a good time to take some questions. We actually had some questions submitted from schools where we could talk about them. So Jazdix from UC Irvine asks, what was the worst misplay that you've seen which ultimately caused an originally winning player or team to lose?
You're probably going to have to answer that one. It's, according to Tespa, because I haven't been
I think it should be anything you've seen. What's the worst thing that you've ever seen?
Isn't this a little too much of a call out? I mean, I do have something in mind. I feel like it might be a little too mean. You go first.
Okay, so there's 2 for me. So number 1 was me on camera at ESGN during fight night, where somehow I looked at my turn and went, yeah, that's perfect. And I went for a shield block, shield slam, fiery war axe play. and then quickly realized that I didn't have 6 mana, I had 5. So I threw away shield block and then was unable to ever use the shield slam for the rest of the game and lost as a result.
Okay.
The second one for me is actually from Tespa. And I'm sorry, the Jor dude, but there is an end game situation where the Jor dude and his team had a 100% chance to win the game unless they took the wrong play. And as soon as he made the first step of the play, it was too late. And he had one of those moments where it was, oh my gosh, what have I just done? And instead it was a 100% chance to lose.
Oh, okay. Well, mine would have to be, I feel like this was from a couple years back, maybe 1 or 2 years back. I feel like it was at a DreamHack. I wasn't there. I was watching the stream. I feel like one of the players, I think his name was Nico the Great, it was against Chalky, and it was a Warlock. He was playing Zoo against Controller. I believe it was something like 3 or 4 miss-lethal turns in a row, back to back to back to back, and then doing something where he ended up like POing the wrong minion. He PO'd minion, hit face, died, and then he traded everything else for the Alexstrasza. It was something like very, like way over the top, like 5 turns in a row. Yeah.
And then he lost the game because of it.
Lost the game because of that.
I don't like to demean people for this.
Yeah.
I just think they're funny. Like
I think it was very funny for me.
look, everyone
but-
does dumb stuff. There's no question. That's how accidents happen. Is
Yeah.
people they just make bad decisions. And in Hearthstone,
There's
not
a lot
really
of pressure.
there's not really anything like super impactful about it though. Like you're just gonna walk away and everything's fine. But for some reason, making mistakes in Hearthstone feels so much worse than making real life mistakes.
Yeah. It's especially because like there's decisions like the theoretical decisions, you kind of mess up and you don't really think too much about it. But when it's stuff like just that glaringly obvious, you kind of start feeling bad.
So what's the worst play you guys have ever seen or made? You can feel free to comment on Facebook.com/Team Tespa or tweet at Team Tespa. You can also feel free to tweet at myself, that's Admirable, or at StrifeCrow. We want to know what's the worst thing you've ever seen in Hearthstone.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't tell me about the rest of that stuff, but you guys have scary stories. Why did I say that? Now they're gonna do it. It's like when that zoo told the internet to stop making Harambe memes. That is a very good way to get more Harambe memes.
Oh, I want to point out something because this is something I've gone through as the shaman. I like spirit calls and attacking face. Now, one thing about spirit calls is everyone's running Harrison Jones, right? And you have 2 spirit calls. So if you save it to the late game and play spirit calls at any point, you can only use 1 charge a turn. Right? So the moment you play Spirit Calls and attack, they're going to get 2 cards from Harrison Jones. And you have two Spirit Calls in your deck, so you're going to have a lot of dead cards. I really like this early Spirit Calls, especially with this totem. I was even thinking to myself, like, a little the other day, whether you should even play Spirit Calls, like, turns 2 and 3 here, and just start attacking, even if you don't have Spell Power Totem. Because that enables you to hold 1 charge of Spirit Calls at all times, and then when they finally play a minion, you can maybe kill with a charge of Spirit Calls.
Oh.
Whereas if you play it later, you still have 2 charges left and you get Harrison for 2.
Something else to note is that it also shreds the armor total from UC Davis.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So
that's a real threat when you're trying to rely on Thunderbluff Valiant and Thing from Below to get the job done.
yeah, so I think this setup here, maybe just leave up this Spirit Clause as 3/1 so you can use it for a value trade. And that's fine, because if you get Harrison for 1, you can play your second Spirit Call. It's not that bad to get Harrison for 1 on, 1 mana card as well. It's just, if you don't play Spirit Calls and just leave it as this 1, it's very hard to play later in the game. You're all so scared Harrison.
It's an excellent point. I personally don't really play this version of Shaman that much.
I play it.
It's a little too slow. I like the Wicked Witch Doctor list, though.
I like these slow, grindy shamans.
I know
with,
you do.
Yeah, I run Primal Fusions.
Anything slow and grindy is right up StrifeCrow's alley, and you can feel free to think whatever you want about that comment.
Okay. So Ravaging Ghoul looks pretty good here.
I think Sylvanas looks pretty good here.
Sylvanas? It's okay.
Sylvanas inherently isn't a super strong card in this matchup, and so anytime you can take anything from them, it's good. And right now, forcing a Hex isn't so strong against you that you seeing the Hex goes, well, I'm going to lose the game. Speak of the devil. But in this spot, if if UCLA kills the Sylvanas here, which I think they're almost guaranteed to,
Yeah.
without Hex, you get to take a totem away from them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the way about Sylvanas here is you're not really scared of getting hexed because Sylvanas is never really good in this matchup. It just like always gets hexed, especially the later you go. So you just don't, I guess you just don't expect anything from it.
Right,
That's why
exactly.
you're not too scared of it getting hexed. But
There's so many matchups, like against Druid, for example. Sylvanas is great once they get to the stage where they want to play Ancient of War. So if a 5/10 Ancient of War comes down, Sylvanas is one of the best direct challenges to that card.
yeah.
But in this matchup, you don't have that. The biggest threats there are Thing from Below and Thunderbluff Valley.
And they're always comboed with all these totems where
Right.
it's very likely to steal one of those as well.
So getting the Hex now and seeing that information, not only is that vital, but it didn't cost them very much. A couple points of life.
Yeah. Actually, definitely like Mana Tide here. You potentially have more totems for the Thunder Buff next turn, even if this Mana Tide's always dying to the, something like a weapon. If the weapon swings that Mana Tide, it's likely that something else survives you. There's only so many things you can kill with that one weapon.
Yeah, bit of an interesting turn here as well. I imagine that Fiery War Axe is slated on the Mana Tide totem, but then how do you start dealing with the rest of the board?
Yeah. Iron Forge plus Shield Slam is a good way to deal with the 4/4. This turn, going to turn 7, is always when you want to start thinking about Thunder Bluff. And when I play this Shaman, I like to just Thunder Bluff when I have a couple totems. Not really for lethal, but kind of to force out a brawl here.
Curious if there's ever any room for a Ravaging Ghoul Bash in a situation like this as well.
Yeah,
Interesting.
actually, you can slam Bash Ravaging Ghoul. That's actually
Ooh,
really
you
good.
could also just Ravaging Ghoul and then Fiery War Axe, expend the life. I kind of like
Oh,
this
yeah.
as well. This is, they have the Gorehowl in hand, and again, the burst potential from UCLA on the Shaman is going to be limited to board presence. There's not a lot of from-hand burst. It requires a board state. And so because of that, when UC Davis takes this line, if they don't see Thunderbluff Valiant, it opens up Gorehowl. If they do see Thunderbluff Valiant, they have multiple ways to kill it now.
Yeah. Sometimes you, like, something like a Gorehowl on Thunderbluff Valiant generally isn't a great answer sometimes because they have all these totems left over, right? But in this situation, there's only a 2/1 and a 3/1 left over. So it's like, almost too much, but not. It's like kind of on the border where it's kind of playable. And especially with Baron Gendril, you just want to kill a high health minion then instead of Geddon potentially.
It's spots like these that make me want to play Lava Burst in the spot of Hex. So that way, when I get to these board states, I can surprise burst people.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's maybe too unlikely. Like in other matchups, that's good. I like the run cards like Primal Fusion kind of for something like this. Oftentimes, it's actually a very surprising burst card for Warrior because.
Oh yeah,
you
that's the Witch Doctor build. Just Bloodlust in general is.
I run Primal Fusion without Witch Doctor.
You run you run Primal Fusion without Witch Doctor.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're crazy.
I'm crazy.
That card is so good in the Witch Doctor builds.
But it's good. It's also good. I think it's good enough.
Yep. So not a lot of room for making a push here on UCLA's side. It's pretty much taking what they can get. And I think UC Davis is potentially falling into a bit of trouble here. I mean, their turns are looking good, but they need to recover the damage spot now. They've expended a lot of life to get to this kind of board state. And so now the next step is how do they stabilize this and get out of range of single minions?
Yeah, I like Ravaging Ghoul a lot because Baron Geddon's starting to hurt you yourself too much, and you can't really get too much armor with that. Ravaging Ghoul allows you to get some armor this turn outside of, like you're not taking the 2 damage from Baron Geddon. You can also play either Bash or Iron Forge Portal here. Get some more armor, clear out everything.
I like the Bash for sure. Mana Tide needs to die. But UCLA, I mean, they have a ton of cards in hand, but UC Davis knows that a lot of times these cards are going to be Maelstrom Portal, they're going to be Lightning Storm, they're going to be Lightning Bolt. They're not necessarily high priority or high profile threats. And so that is, I think, really affecting the way that they played this game, where you saw them play very liberally with their life total for multiple turns in a row. And so once they're at this stage, this is going to tell everything. If UCL, which last turn almost did, if UCLA doesn't have a big push here, UC Davis is going to feel comfortable recovering this state.
Yeah, Davis actually doesn't have, they don't have that many, it feels like Davis doesn't really have that many turns. all these, I mean, there's so much potential burst here, right? At 12, Justicar has not been played yet, I feel.
Nope.
So these turns are actually really scary for UC Davis here because any of these like minions sticking can potentially threaten lethal. You don't know whether they're running Bloodlust, but even if they're just running something like Primal Fusion, Wicked Witch Doctor, some Lightning Bolts, there's just so many things that can add up, like chunks of 4 or 5 damage I can just randomly burst through here. So they're actually kind of living kind of on the edge here. Even a Maelstrom to get the minion instead of the Totem Golem.
The Hungry Crab presence here. It's strong.
What do you think about that Maelstrom Pearl instead of Thunderblade?
It's certainly
Totem Golem.
It's certainly interesting. I'm not sure I'm in agreement with it, but it is a minion where, you know, you have enough on board that the extra damage can threaten.
It's like less
But the
committing
Totem Golem's good if you have nothing left. But here, you see what happens when you don't play Totem Golem. Suddenly your board gets swept.
Yeah. When Baron can do a full board sweep, that's when it just buys you so much time because the main threats of mid-range Shaman relies on having a board full of totems for burst, like with Thunder Bluff and with a Flame Tongue Totem, things like that. And when you clear everything, it sometimes takes them quite a while to build up again where they can burst you. It buys you a lot of time.
Yeah, UC Davis, though, they have all the tools to handle this situation. You know, UCLA is going to try turn after turn to get an assault going, but there's 2 Shield Slams, there's an Execute, there's an Ironforge Portal, there's a Grom, and there's also a Gorehowl. Where on earth does UCLA get this damage through?
I'd like to make a comment about Revenge because, you know, normally you want to burst people, burst the word down because Revenge is such a powerful card. It looks like Davis is actually stabilizing sub 12 for Revenge, and that means that any Revenge top decks are going to be like crazy good. In fact, a 2-mana deal 3 to everything like a Hellfire is actually comparable to something like a Brawl. Like it just turns every Revenge into another Brawl.
Wow, they're tanking 7 damage here to save the Hex. And UC Davis is 1 damage off lethal.
Okay. And there's also Bloodlust in UCLA. As long as you're 1 damage off, I guess it's fine to tank the 7. I mean, I've lost the games because of this, but sometimes you just want to play greedy.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really smart, actually.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that they have accounted for Grom in this spot is remarkable. Having the Hex to answer the next threat from UC Davis is a big deal. The Yogg builds of Control Warrior don't run a lot of threats. It's Barongeddon, Ragnaros, Portals, and Elise.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a lot of threats. And so with Grom being the last one, this could just have been a brilliant move from UCLA.
Yeah, because you can Hex Grom, and Grom is so much... it's hard to deal with like a 9 health minion sometimes. A lot of times Grom, you know, charges in something, it doesn't turn into 9, but it's a good target to Hex.
Grom always just looks like an uprooted Ancient War to me. Maybe we should uproot it a little bit more.
Decided to Grom here instead of just swing into the Azure Drake with the weapon and do something like Ironforge Pearl.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the life total right now, which the Shield Slams in combination with the Ironforge Portal is just high class removal right now. But I am a little bit curious. I mean, they saw Lightning Bolt that turn, and they saw the Spirit Claws get used. How much burst damage could UCLA really have in this spot? And so,
well, the Ironforge Pearl's, I believe, safer than Grom as well, because you have more armor with that play.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you get the armor refunded. You get the health refunded because you're attacking into the Azure Drake in that spot.
You get to play Shield Block as well.
That's true.
So you get 5 more armor still. You leave up an extra 1/1, I believe, with 5 more armor there. So I think it's still safer.
Now, to me, what's interesting is that almost every time I've played this matchup, it has come down to last threat.
Okay.
As the Control Warrior, your plan oftentimes is to fatigue the Shaman. So that could be a big factor here for UC Davis as well. Just knowing that Grom for value is going to get them into a safer spot more often than not. And so they can just do that and have plenty of time to grind the game out.
These Bloodlust decks, like, I wonder how much Davis expects Bloodlust, because Bloodlust can quickly end the game from any kind of board state, and it's not something that you see in non-Wicked Witch Doctor lists a lot. I feel like Davis probably has a pretty good read that there's no Witch Doctor in this list. And I don't think they're expecting Bless, is what I'm saying.
It's really hard to expect it
Yeah.
in some lists, but if they are accounting for it, I think we'll get a glimpse of it this turn. Now, that second execute's not a very strong draw. And that's one of the weakest drops that there is.
You can just get so much armor that Bless doesn't even kill you. I feel like these revenges are also coming soon. Neither revenge has been played yet. There's only, it feels like, 4 or 5 cards left for Warrior. I'd like to say, I'm not sure. That means 2 of those cards is revenge, and I think one of those cards is Elise as well.
Yeah, one of them is definitely Elise. We haven't seen a revenge. That's a good point to make.
Yeah.
There's also 1 brawl left.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a lot. There's Yogg left. They have so much left in the build to just tackle board states. And this is really smart from UCLA. Even though it's just 2 damage, the Lightning Storm's doing nothing else in this matchup. That extra 2 damage is going to be gas that they need.
Yeah. So this is a big setup here. I feel like there's so many top decks that Davis is going to sweep here with Revenge, Yogg, Brawl.
Blood to Ichor honestly helps. I mean, they have executes in their hand that are borderline useless right now.
Yeah. The thing is, if you throw down all those like shield slams and executes, you're posting. Wait. Oh. Okay, interesting.
There is some real Taunt Totem potential here.
Yeah, there's also Spell Power Totem where you can consider Blood to Ichor just killing some of these guys outright. Keep in mind that if you roll a Spell Power Totem on the blood itself, you still get that spell power, so it's like...
Well, there's Taunt Totem number 1.
It looks like this Shield Slam's being saved then, right?
I'd Shield Slam 100% here.
If you do Shield Slam, it's the wrong order then, because you could have got 2 Spell Power Totems and not have to swung. Well, do you value that?
Well, yeah,
more?
I don't know. I don't think I am Shield Slamming here now that I think about it, because the 2 executes need to be used, and one of the ways to use them is to use the last charge of the Score Howl, which it's on 1 power now, and then execute afterwards, and hopefully you can use the Shield Slam on something bigger. So with the Taunt Totem out, I do like saving it. This will open up the second Lightning Storm for UCLA, but wait a minute, is there lethal here? Well, they did this pretty fast. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Now, if the full potential, if they could have done Flame Tongue, Lightning Storm, and
definitely was overloaded last turn though. From
yeah,
that's
what I forgot about too, was the overload.
Oftentimes it's very important to save some kind of removal for Thunder Bluff, but
still no revenge.
Yeah, like the problem with saving Shield Slam just for Thunder Bluff here is that if there's enough totems and you Shield Slam Thunder Bluff Valiant, you're still going to die to totems. So oftentimes you need to actually get something like a Brawl or some Revenges to clear the rest of the totems. Just decides to go ahead and use Shield Slam.
UCLA's 1 damage off lethal here. Bloodlust is 12 damage.
Yeah, so 12. With
now, Thunder Bluff Valiant is going to do an awful big job setting this up. UC Davis, they need a big draw, and they need it now. They've been so dry on board removal.
Yeah, have to count for... I feel like the most thing you're counting here is, I think, Revenge. Might be better against Brawl just to even leave it up. It's only 1/6 chance it survives and get 5 more damage. Wow.
Justicar doesn't protect them, and that's it. They've lost.
Yeah, wow, that's weird. We never saw a Revenge the whole game, right?
Wow, no Brawl, no second Brawl, no Revenges, no Yogg-Saron. Thunder Bluff Valiant sticks. UCLA takes a 3-0 set over University of California, Davis. Wow, what a wonderful set of plays there for UCLA. Just every single step of the way applying just enough pressure to force action. But I got a feel for UC Davis in this spot. I mean, they had so many good draws in the deck, and they just never picked one up.
Yeah. Kind of unfortunate for them.
Now, that being said, I don't feel for them that much because they took 2 big risks at the end of 2 of those games. So it didn't pan out in this one, but for UCLA, I liked the way that they approached a lot of these matchups, which was very deliberate attack plans and understanding what the opponent's range was in a lot of these spots. You know, this continuing to apply little bits of pressure, the understanding of making sure you're pushing the Spirit Claws damage early on, everything really came to fruition for them.
Yeah, I feel like UCLA played pretty well that series, so congrats to them. The Iron Fur Bruins take another series. They're one game away from making it to the playoffs.
Indeed they are. 3-0 now. You need a 4-2 record or better to advance. You can show your school spirit on social media. You can visit us on Facebook, or you can tweet at Team Tespa. Of course, we want to give a big thanks to those who've made this broadcast possible. We're powered by Twitch here at the studio, and we also want to give a thanks to Gunner and Steel Series, who have contributed to helping make some of these aspiring Hearthstone players' dreams come true, with $50,000 in scholarships up for grabs. Our third and final match of the night is coming up, but we got to go to a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Coming up is University of California, San Diego versus the University of Washington.